Hello, and welcome to the July episode of Tambellini Group's Top of Mind podcast. I'm your host, Liz Farrell. Today, we are talking about how modernizing business processes through digital transformation efforts can help the droves of institutions that are struggling to enroll and retain students in what we know is a very fast-changing and competitive environment. And we are lucky enough to have Kathy Lueckeman today as our guest. Kathy most recently served as Chief Strategy Officer at Olivet Nazarene University in Illinois. She led the technology strategy there that built the foundation for ONU's remarkably swift and successful digital transformation. She continues to consult with ONU and is currently working with various institutions across North America. And for the past 17 years, she has been working leveraging technology to drive innovation in higher ed, holding roles including managing CRM and graduate admissions at Wayne State University, leading higher education strategy at what was then known as the Salesforce Foundation, and serving as Chief Innovation Officer at Maryville University in St. Louis. Kathy, clearly you've worn many different hats, so let's start by hearing a bit more about how your career has evolved. I'm particularly interested in the time you spent on the higher ed strategy at Salesforce, which we know is a vendor.
That's true. And actually, in my background, I didn't go to the vendor. There was back in before 2015 or 16, Salesforce, the company, the technology company, and Salesforce Foundation, their charitable foundation, were two very separate entities.
Okay.
So I worked for the charitable foundation, and the charitable foundation, the reason that they existed was to make grants, granting technology to nonprofits and higher eds, and to help nonprofits and higher eds be successful in using the solution. They didn't sell things, right?
Gotcha.
They helped. And so when I went to work at the foundation, I was the only higher ed person there. They were set up to be nonprofit. And because this was back 2014, I got really involved in the Salesforce ecosystem. 2011, 2012, I held their first webinar in 2012. I held the first event in 2013. And then they kind of grew from there. But they kind of created this position and said, hey, Kath, come work for us and help other higher eds do what you did. And so I did that. They decided while I worked there, I think it was maybe 2016, that they were going to become a public benefit corporation. Okay. And a public benefit corporation now is no longer a nonprofit. And that really didn't fit with my mission. And it also aligned perfectly with the time that I was helping a school called Maryville University architect a solution that would put students kind of at the center of all of the service interactions that the university had, taking the student from the life cycle of prospective student, applicant, current student, and alumni and friends, so donors. And so I was helping them with understanding what it would take to do the architecture. And the president there said, hey, why don't you come and work for me and actually do it? And so it just worked out perfectly that it sounds terrible because nobody leaves Salesforce, right? But that Salesforce was moving more into a corporate kind of situation, and I wanted to stay more a non-corporate situation. I still wanted to help my community. And President Lombardi reached out to me, and the way he got me to move was to say, whatever you develop here at Maryville, you can give away to your friends, to your peers, the other schools using Salesforce. And I went, okay, you got me, because I'm big in the open source movement.
So Kathy, let's expand on that a bit, just to connect the dots on what led you to take on this massive digital and business transformation project at Olivet Nazarene. I know in our previous conversation, you talked about the importance of laying the foundation for this work and how many institutions haven't yet done that.
That's exactly right. And that's a hard thing for schools to understand. It took me 10 years to know how to do this foundation, right? It's not something you can do overnight. But there are some repeatable solutions that have been proven out, have borne out over time that I know because I had to pioneer them, right? I made the
Right.
mistakes with them. I know what to do, what not to do. And so that's really where I can come in and help a school jumpstart their digital transformation, because I've already done this. So what I want to do is I come in and I say, I give you all my configuration, you have the foundation, but now we're going to come up with a strategy. And in Olivet's situation, Olivet was like many public or private institutions that are in distress. And we decided at that time that the reason they got me to come work for them is because they wanted to try a new business model. They knew that this enrollment cliff is coming. They've already had struggles with discounting. Their online population had been dwindling. We all know online education is going up, but it's because of those outliers. It's because of SNHU and WGU. It's because of those big giants. And an online program like Olivet, this tiny school in Illinois, can't compete with that. So I took them through this whole series of level setting to even help them understand what's going on in the industry, because they're so insular, they didn't know. And then took them through some strategic planning. Through that, we got to the Your Way program, which is meant to be a differentiator. Yes, absolutely. It's meant to support students. But first and foremost, it is a differentiator to compete against those big giants. And what we decided to do is alter all of our general education courses for our adult students to move them from kind of the traditional online course where people are watching lectures mostly to I use a product called My Trailhead, which is a private instance of Salesforce's training program, Trailhead, which allows us to create little bite-sized lessons in a very easy to consume format with some knowledge checks. And then I put them in a community where they can engage with the faculty and with peers. And that's where they can also, they have a customized list of courses that they have to take. They have a customized syllabus so that they can see all of the homework that they have, all of the tests and all of the results, and take their final all in one place on that same syllabus page. In addition to being able to link to all of the Trailhead trails, all of the courses online, and engage in their groups in the community and submit all of their homework, kind of all in one interface. So it was a big, huge solution that was really targeting that some college, no degree, that 36 million Americans that we hear about with some college and no degree, so that we could switch to this group that has already been so marketed to, but with a differentiator.
Yeah.
One of the things that we really tried to do is use technology to make students, prospective students, feel wanted and welcome. We wanted to make it easy for them to get through our administrivia, and we wanted to support them. And we were able to do that using technology. We knew that the barriers to students coming back to earn their degree were financial in nature, right? So if they either can't afford it, ran out of financial aid, or have a balance at another school, that, and their transcript was being held hostage, we know that that was a big barrier. So we had to remove the financial barrier. So we created this tuition-free program. That meant we had to bend the cost curve for us, right? So we eliminated admissions and advising basically from the whole new student experience, automating all of that, right? I auto communicate with them. We have every intervention. So if they log in, they get a message. If they haven't logged in, they get a message. If they complete their first homework, they get a message. I have all of that built out so that I don't have to spend staff time and resources on that, because we can't afford to support them in the same way, but they need to be supported. And we keep it very minimal with just the faculty engaging. And then a portion of it is we knew that other barriers were they didn't have a lot of time. And so they couldn't make regular time to go to class. They couldn't be in person, it needed to be online. And they couldn't necessarily commit to a certain schedule. And so that's why we made it self-paced. So online, self-paced, tuition-free. And then a lot of them are coming back either after a long period of stop out or with not a lot of confidence. Either not a lot of confidence because they didn't do well in school before, or because it's online and it's technology based and they don't feel comfortable. They've never had that experience. And so
Yeah.
we had to make it as low risk as possible. We had to allow them to feel comfortable. So we oriented them using Trailhead to orient them to the solution, the modules themselves, the community, how they engage with faculty and staff, the resources that they have. We give them Grammarly, types of things like that, free downloads of Microsoft Office, and we orient them to that. But we also made it low risk in the way that we allow homework to be submitted an unlimited number of times.
Mm-hmm.
It just has to be pass or fail. It just has to be complete or incomplete, and they can submit it until it's complete. There's no risk with that, right? Same thing with tests. They have to earn a 70% or better, but they can retake a test as many times as they want, meaning many of them who get a 90% will retake it so they can get 100%, right?
Yeah.
So they're not hurting their grade in any way, right? They're getting back into the habit of going to class and doing their homework so that when they get out of their general education and get into their major, they're on a pathway that feels really comfortable for them.
Mm-hmm.
We've kind of oriented them back into school, given them this long runway to be able to come up to speed with how to be a student again, to ensure that they're much more successful and get to graduation this time.
Okay.
It's a big solution. It's crazy.
It's a really big solution. And I have so many questions about it because it's like, I noticed you also had an admissions background and you've worked in other institutions. I mean, and so you understand more of the levers and the pain points maybe than the average, person who's doing this from like, we've got to configure the solutions does. So like, I'm just thinking like when you come to a place like Olivet and you have this broad mandate, right? As you said, you start with like a nearly impossible problem. Like how much of that are you driving versus doing the technical stuff? Like can we go backward a bit, like when you got there, sort of how you move the needle, what you were involved with, like in terms of setting how we get to those goals, or how much collaboration was involved in that?
Yeah, sure. I've been really fortunate, maybe, that my experience is so varied, right? I've worked at a lot of universities and I've worked at almost every single department there. So I know our pains as an end user of student information systems and standalone ed tech. I know the pains associated with the processes, but because I've also been, I've led CRM initiatives, I can do the technical side as well. So I know this is a pain. I need to fix it by doing this, technology solution. That not many people have. They're not both users. And plus, I've also been in, there's a benefit to being old. I hate to say it. As much as I hate being old, there's a benefit because I've grown up in the industry so that I'm accustomed to working at a strategic level. Now, I'm fortunate that I know how to work at a tactical level, right? I've had the pains, I know how to do the technology, but where I am, where my skills lie is really at the strategic level. And so at Olivet, as I said, they were pretty insular, and there's nothing wrong with that. They were a small faith-based school. They weren't out in the world like I was with lots of schools and sharing information back and forth. And so while I did have a champion in a vice president who was on cabinet for their adult and online programs for this initiative, he really deferred to me in leading the strategy. He had a really hard time he didn't want to mandate it, right? He had a hard time saying, I'm going to back up and let's develop this together. And it's not that he was unwilling to, they were so accustomed to looking to him for everything. So I came in, he brought me in specifically because I had the experience he didn't have as it related to developing a new business model and strategic planning. And so my strategic planning is a little different than most in that as great as they can be, they often end up as shelfware. And I told him I'm not going to come in and put all of this effort into something that's going to sit on a shelf. And so I required them to work with me to select 3 targets that we had to implement, that we had to reach by 2023.
Okay.
And Your Way came out of that. That was implementing technology was one, right? Developing a pathway for adult students to do degree completion. We had these 3 targets that we had to meet. And while I managed the process, if you will, of developing a strategic plan, I ensured that the stakeholders were part of this decision making. I didn't make the decision. I led them there. I didn't make the decision. I then was able to develop an operational plan that is very tactical in nature. And it looks a lot like a technology project plan would, any kind of project plan. Like literally, this is how we're going to do it in this sprint. This is how we're going to do it, so that we could keep our strategy on track by implementing these tactics and measuring them to ensure we got them done by 2023.
Okay.
That's not how most people do strategic planning, right? Most people have this general idea and they have a task force. I ran it like a business so that we could make progress. And to Olivet's credit, this team has been incredibly agile. They've been on board with, me changing everything about their lives. We changed the way they teach, for goodness sakes.
Yeah.
And so it's been an incredible experience with, a ton of changes all at once, but a really good integrated approach to recruitment, admissions, onboarding, and actually student success, all as one process, where usually you think of them as very different processes. Ours is very integrated in our approach.
So there was, in terms of, like, you set these, as you said, like a business. So we've got, this is the timeline, this is what we need to get done. Can you talk about any of the metrics to measure the success of it, aside from like, okay, well, these were the tactical things we needed to do to get to say, this is now implemented, this is now the way we do business. Like, you mentioned, for instance, adults and continuing education learners, like, has that balance of students changed? Is it too early for us to say on any of these things? But how are you monitoring the impact of effectively implementing these changes?
So fortunately, I can look to industry standards. I pushed us down the recruitment funnel, but I can still use enrollment as an indicator, and I'm up 1,600%.
When you say push down the recruitment funnel, what do you mean by that?
Usually, so I use a solution called Advertising Studio that works with my email marketing solution called Pardot to advertise in the moment on digital property. Okay. So that advertising drives leads. Leads are converted to inquiries either through a request for information or through landing page gated content that ads drive it to. That adds them to a communications campaign, both email and SMS if they opt in, so that we push them to application. The application has been completely streamlined to get them through the application process quickly. And as soon as they're admitted, as soon as they're applied, we conditionally admit them automatically.
Okay, I see. You're expediting the phases and the timeline of the admissions.
So application and admits don't mean anything. And frankly, at every school, applications and admits don't mean anything. Admissions directors won't tell you this, but it's our dirty little secret, because students can apply innumerable times now, but they only enroll one place. So application numbers mean nothing. Admit numbers mean nothing, because if we have tons of applications, our selectivity can still go up. And we admit way too many students. They're not going to come. They're only going to go to one place. Yeah. So I don't care about application or admit. I pushed it down. I'm looking at enrollment. And we're up 1,600% in new students who are provisioned to start a course. What I care about, though, is because these are tuition-free courses, I care about retention. So from tuition-free to tuition-bearing courses, and then student success after that first retention. So I've even changed the meaning of retention from first year to second year, right? I'm going from tuition free to student success, right? So they have to go tuition free to tuition bearing, and then retention every term thereafter till graduation.
That's a harder retention. I mean, now you got to pay for it.
Yeah. So it is and it isn't, right? We
okay, tell me more.
Easy. We just made it easy for them to get that easy. They're still rigorous courses,
more user friendly,
streamlined, definitely user friendly. I mean, you're going through bite-sized chunks of content and earning badges. You know, this is like gamified. So we've made it much more user friendly to get through courses. They have college credit now. Where are they going to go? I mean, certainly they can transfer, and if they transfer, great. We still have their contact information. We can bring them back as grad students. We do charge a transcript fee, which is a pass-through cost because our outsourced transcript company charges it to us. But it's much easier to convert somebody who already has this strong affinity to you because you just help them come back to college, earn college credit in a really user-friendly way. So conversion isn't as hard as you think. Now, we totally expect that we won't convert most of them, and that's okay. This is advertising we couldn't really buy, right? So we only have to convert a small percentage, like 5%, and we're way over that percentage to continue to earn money. So it's been an incredible differentiator for us, and a way to really rethink, do we really need to do that kind of application review? Do we really need to make all of those phone calls where people don't answer phones anymore? And do we really have to follow those old business processes that admissions offices cling to? We don't. We really don't. What we have to do is free up time to use our brain instead of using our fingers to build relationships. And it's building those relationships that are going to make the difference in student success, in graduation. I mean, there's no other way to say it. I mean, it's all about those relationships and them feeling supported.
That's really amazing. So how long has this program been in the Your Way program been up and running? I mean, you already obviously have results of how many are retaining from free to paid.
Yeah, so it launched January of 2021. So just over a year ago, year and a half ago, almost a year and a quarter ago. Amazingly, this tells you how fast we were able to bring technology on board. I started in 2019. Our strategic plan was done in March 2020. We redid the whole business plan, all of the technology implementation, and all of the rewritten content for all of the courses to launch the next January. So in 9 months, we launched the next January. So it's been just over a year, and that's how I have metrics already.
Wow. So how do you get, I mean, this creates a lot more work for the faculty, right? They've got to now,
you said creates less work.
But initially creating those courses and everything, like, so that they have these modules ready. How did you, I mean, yes, I think that makes sense. Of course, it's then like infinitely scalable. But there's so many technology things that you can make the argument it'll make it easier in the long run. Getting people to put in the effort up front to get to that point is a different story.
We paid them.
Okay. All right.
We paid them to create the content. It's not that the content didn't exist in the courses. We had the courses, right? The content existed. We wanted it rewritten in an engaging way for a self-paced course, right? So it had to be, these 6-week classes became 6 modules. And in those modules, there were small little units, I would call lessons, right? If we're trying to do an analogy. And so we had to take content that existed, but we wanted the SMEs, our faculty, to rewrite it in a way that made sense as a progression for somebody who's self-paced, knowing that they may have to go back, knowing that, frankly, if they know the subject really well, they might jump forward, right? So we had to have that rewritten, and we paid them to do that. It was only right to pay them to do that.
Yeah.
We've changed the way they teach more from being didactic, to I call the modern version of the Socratic method, where they're engaging in online community group for their course, for their class, and they pose questions or post articles that are modern current examples of something that they have in a lesson. It's really a modernization of that online experience, kind of reflecting the ethos that we have on campus, but bringing it online in a new way. That's not the terrible LMS Canvas-based engagement. This is true kind of personal one-to-one engagement, plus people can have things be discoverable. It's in a feed, right? So others can chime in. It's much less risky than, raising your hand in class and chiming in or being put on the spot, right? And so it has changed the way they teach, so to take the administrivia off their plate and let them just be brilliant, which is really kind of a cool thing.
Yeah, that is really cool. I mean, how did you pedagogy, so many questions about this, because how did you know to use
that?
Yeah, because of all the things you've done, I haven't seen, there wasn't, I was a learning technologist, things like that. Here we have there was. Okay.
We had a curriculum team. The curriculum team was associated with kind of the traditional online courses, so that we could have that continuum and use a tool, Smarter Measures, to make sure that we were keeping our standards up. We did not want to compromise in any way, shape, or form on the standards. The courses still had to be rigorous. We still had to be able to answer our accreditors. They went through all of that kind of compliance requirements when we did the content. So they led the creation of the content with the faculty and put it through all of its rigors, right, to make sure that it met our standards. It met the accreditation standards and kind of the really high online standards that the university had already set. That was key. That was really important. Not that we don't absolutely trust the faculty, but we wanted to also be able to answer any questions that we had related to compliance or accreditation or any kind of standards question.
Yeah, there were 3 pain points that you mentioned, or that were mentioned rather, in both the case study and then in your nomination. And it was I really liked this framework. It was, for the students, it's the admissions, it's the assignments, and then for the professors, it's the grading. Are when I hear you talk about this, it seems like those fit a lot into the first 2, but would you say those are the 3 main ones that these were all designed to address?
Those are 3 pain points. There are lots of others that we addressed. As it relates to grading, most universities require a faculty member to go and grade in the LMS and then put a final grade into the SIS using a portal. It's like double the work, right? We didn't want them to do that.
That sounds so annoying. I can't imagine.
Almost every university makes faculty do this. So the solution I proposed to them, I said, since the homework's going to be pass-fail, all you have to do is we gave them an interface that brought up the homework, like what the assignment was and the student's response, and all they had to do is say complete, incomplete.
Yeah.
So they could go through one by one really fast. And then the tests are auto-graded because they're multiple choice. The only thing they really had to grade were mastery assessments, which are our final exams. And the mastery assessments, we gave them an interface to actually do the grading on that as well, using a rubric, right? And so they said in this rubric that this assignment, met this rubric in this way, right? Okay. So that we got a point total. That auto calculated for them. They didn't have to add it up or anything. And then we pushed it right into Salesforce, right into the system. And so because we have Salesforce integrated with our student information system, it also goes right to our student information system. So they didn't have to enter it multiple places. They just had to grade. They just had to grade it, nothing else. They didn't have to calculate grades, try to say, 60% of the mastery plus 40% of the average test scores, right? They didn't have to
weighted and everything. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We did all the weighting, everything right in Salesforce. So when I showed it to them, I swear to God, they cheered. I've never seen faculty cheer. Faculty have never cheered for me.
I've never seen it either.
Like, yes. And I didn't realize what a pain point it was. But yes, that was great. There's an onboarding pain point that we really haven't talked about.
Yeah, let's hear about that.
Yeah, so in our solution, standard to Salesforce is the ability to provide service. We don't think of ourselves as providing service, but that's almost all we do on the administrative side. And almost all advisors do is service. And so we use the standard functionality to document every touch point with a student. And as we were implementing this Your Way program, I had already rolled out this functionality to the advisors. And so they documented every touch point with a student, whether that was an advising session or if they answered an email, if it was a phone call, they documented everything. And I made them categorize it. Every interaction was categorized 3 levels. Mm-hmm. So then I could say, what are the biggest pain points? Why are students reaching out to us? That surfaced business intelligence for us. And the number one reason was scheduling. They wanted a schedule change. What is my schedule? What courses do I have to take when? And I want to change my schedule. I want to register, right? I want to change my schedule. And so one of the things that we took on at the same time was the moment they were admitted, we created a default plan of work, degree plan, personal program plan, whatever the school calls it. We created a default one. They no longer have to create a default one. We gave students the ability to document their transfer credit, and that was brought right into their personal program plan, so they don't have to take those courses. Staff can use that same interface to detail transcripts so that the students' degree plan already show transferred credit as transferred, and they don't have to take those courses. Then it tells them exactly in order the fastest way they're going to get to graduation, and gives them an interface and staff an interface to be able to make changes on their own. We put guardrails in place, right? You can't take a course that fulfills a major requirement by choosing an elective, right? We put rules against that, so they could only select among the courses that were available to swap out, or they could reschedule to a different term. They could add as many courses they want to take at a time, or take one at a time. We gave them the ability. Anytime a student makes a change, we create a record in the system, a case in the system that alerts the advisor that student made a change, in case to let the advisor know, but also because we wanted to make sure the advisors had a visibility into it and ensure our logic was okay. Mm-hmm. They could take a look and say, did they make a mistake? Is there a problem? And at first, we didn't have every guardrail in place. And as they worked those cases, we put all of the guardrails in place, and they don't have to check those anymore because they know that they can trust the logic. But we put it there really to give them the confidence that they no longer had to worry about students making their own scheduling changes. Yeah. Part of that schedule, we have a back-end process. I do a ton of automation that creates a registration record form. That registration record is just in Salesforce until 2 weeks before the term, and then it goes into our student information system. But what that does is it gives us the ability to have visibility into forecasting course demand and 7 years out. I know 7 years out, my course demand. If a student in real time becomes inactive, they transfer, they drop out, if they become inactive, if they graduate, any future course connection, any future registration records are automatically deleted. If they change their schedule, that registration record is changed. Either it's swapped out for another course or moved to another term. So in real time, every single solitary moment, I know 7 years out what my course demand is.
That's amazing.
So that was about 70% of the manual work that advisors did, according to them documenting those interactions, those cases. Yeah. And so I'm not saying we eliminated all of it. There's still work that has to be done, but we eliminated a huge portion of the tedious manual work that they had to do so that they could really spend their time advising, not doing clerical work.
Yeah,
which
for the
makes your life so much better.
and it's more for then those one-on-one nuanced situations that they have the time for that is needed, quite frankly, too.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
What were some other pain points? Like, I don't want to have you like list them in a complete hierarchy, but it sounds like those admissions and grading and assignments weren't what you definitely think of as the top three ones, but maybe we can just
Well,
discuss some of the other
it's
ones
it's
and what was done.
yeah, it's depending on the audience, right? So homework, self-paced courses, you know, uh, finances, those are student pain points, right? That we had
Mm-hmm.
to address. So that's certainly a top one, but that's a student pain point.
Okay.
Um, Admissions, as it relates to students going through the process, absolutely, we remove the fee. Um, they don't have many requirements because they're proving themselves as our student.
Mm-hmm.
All they have to do is provide an official transcript, which is what frankly 90% of the schools require anyway.
Right.
But we've made it very easy for them to do that. So yes, the admissions process for students has been streamlined. What I did for staff is remove no-brainer admissions. Frankly, they don't. Almost every admissions office spends way too much on no-brainer admissions, and
What are
so I,
those?
of course, they're going to be admitted. Why do I have to look at anything?
Okay.
And almost all of us, almost every school, we spend most of our time on no-brainer admissions. Either they're going to be admitted or they're going to be denied. No-brainer, right?
Yeah.
And why? Why do we do that? That's such a waste of time. We should be spending our time on those ones that we really have to think about, right, to make a decision on. And frankly, yield. I don't Applications don't mean anything, admits don't mean anything, yield means everything. And frankly, draw rate, but that's getting into marketing. But
Mm-hmm.
enrolled students is what matters. And so moving admissions down the funnel was a staff pain point, right? They didn't want to spend their time on no brainer, no values, low value work. They wanted to spend it on high value work. We got rid of like all of the no brainer work, which was awesome. That was a huge pain point for staff. Scheduling was a huge pain point for staff. Um, just getting program enrollment created, registration was a huge pain point for staff. So all of that is now literally the moment they start the application, we create them as a person, we create their application, we admit them, we create a program enrollment for them, we create a default schedule and give them an interface so that they can make changes, and we auto register them. We onboard them, we provision them, onboard them through an online orientation, which is a trail that takes them through exactly what they're going to experience as a student. And we customize, personalize based on their transfer credit, all the courses that they have to take, give them an easy way to take those courses. And then kind of the other pain point with homework with students is give them an easy way to submit the homework in a way that they're accustomed to submitting, but with a very low risk of a bad grade. I mean, they can keep taking it until they have a good grade. And then making it very simple for them to convert from general education to their core courses. So we onboard them pretty well. We use the same solution. We just onboard them right to tuition paying courses by helping them understand the 6-week model that we have for taking courses and get them into the system for the more traditional coursework that is the core courses.
Now, 6 weeks, does that mean that's the deadline for them to complete everything they need to, or can it be self-paced? Like,
I'm sorry. So the general education courses are all 100% self-paced.
oh, okay.
When you get into the major courses, your core courses, those are they are term-based, and the term's 6 weeks long. So they start and end. They're not self-paced. The core courses are not self-paced, and so
Mm-hmm.
we get them as we convert them into the rhythm of that 6 weeks. We have a little club 6 that they join, and they get accustomed to working in 6-week cadence to get through a course, and in that way we've prepared them for their core courses so that
Mm-hmm.
they can come up to speed slowly, if you will.
Yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be slowly, because some students come over with only 1 or 2 gen ed courses that they have to take, right? And they just want to get through them fast to get to their core. We
Yeah.
don't slow them down in any way, right? They're already way motivated to get to their core. It's the ones who are a little less comfortable. So we had quite a few pain points to address with students as well. Faculty, I mean, the biggest thing was grading, getting rid of the administrivia associated with preparation for courses, right? And then getting rid of all of the, I would say, administrivia around monitoring their many classes in, say, in Canvas, as opposed to one group with automated messaging associated with it. So the moment somebody posts something, they get an email. They can be in the feed right at the moment, but they get an email. They can respond to that email and it posts directly to that feed. They don't even have to log in if they don't want to, right?
Yeah.
So we've made it really simple for them to engage. So that's very different than the Canvas experience.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, what about with the student body makeup now, like the demographics? I mean, with the gen ed, it sounds like, you could do all that obviously remotely on your own time. So are you seeing different ages, people from different backgrounds, income brackets, areas? Like how, when you're going up 1,600%, where is that 1,600% coming from? Because we've heard so much about the demographic cliff. When you're talking about a small private school, it's like those are the ones that seem the most sort of in danger by all this. And how do they overcome those geographical barriers or just population barriers and all that?
So to answer your question, our Olivet has a traditional in-person experience, the coming of age experience, as Paul LeBlanc says, right? That's their bread and butter, with a very small faith-based group. That means that there's not a lot of diversity, right? They tend to be Christian, they tend to be affluent, they tend to be white. I mean, there's not a lot of diversity. I'm not saying all of them are. There's some diversity, but there's not a ton. Not like I worked at Wayne State University, smack dab in the middle of Detroit. This at Olivet is not diverse compared to working at a state university. And so we saw a huge change in diversity just from the sheer numbers. We didn't target the traditional age student. I'm not saying we didn't have traditional age student supply. We did. But we didn't target them. Our advertising is all very efficiently targeted. Literally, I don't have advertising out there that is not related to standalone audience. I have this lookalike audience based on my own successful students that says only when somebody online meets this criteria, show my ad. So I really targeted the advertising. It is super efficient, which is unusual, but super efficient, so that we were looking at an older population. We did have to worry about politics. You don't want to cannibalize your freshman class. I don't, there's plenty of people out there. I didn't need to cannibalize them. I didn't need to pull from the small community where Olivet exists on campus. I needed to pull from the Midwest and greater. We even got students from overseas whom we told that they are not going to get an I-20, right? Usually the international students, because they want to come to the US. These are the students who actually wanted to earn credit, right? And so they knew they weren't getting an I-20. So our diversity, not only did we go up like a decade in average age for adult study students, but our diversity was blown out the window. I mean, it is completely diverse now, and rightfully so. It's a wonderful way to bring a whole bunch of people in a pathway back to college and have them engage with, all different types in a classroom, which doesn't normally happen in most schools.
Yeah.
It's had a profound effect on us.
It certainly doesn't. Well, Kathy, this has truly been a fascinating conversation. And I'm ever so grateful that you took the time to share this inspiring journey with our listeners, along with the impactful results that ONU has seen from its digital transformation thus far. So that concludes this month's episode of Tambellini Group's Top of Mind podcast. Thank you for listening. And as always, don't forget to check out our other episodes, blogs, and resources at thetambolinigroup.com.